Welcome back to our politics. So the French parliament has passed a law it hopes will help tackle the influence of fake news on elections. But some think that the law itself is a threat to democracy. Alex Morgan in The Cube has the latest on this. Alex, what is the story?
Tessa, France versus fake news. That's how the proponents of this change in the law would like you to see it, putting the onus on social media platforms we use every single day, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, Instagram, putting the onus on them to make sure the information we are getting, especially around election time, is fair and accurate. Now, there's a lot to this law. It is complicated. Let me just break down perhaps some of the key parts of it. Well, it's all to do with the information we are seeing and knowing who it is coming from. So this law obliges platforms to make it clear to you and I to pull back the curtains and say who is paying for content to be promoted on their platforms and publicly to declare how much they are paying. We're also allowed now to know how our information is being used, perhaps to make sure this content is targeted in targeted paid-for advertising campaigns. Now then it comes down to algorithms, those mysterious algorithms that control what we see and how we see it. Now, as you can see, it's hard to keep an eye on those things. But the important thing about algorithms is that now there will be an onus on the platforms to explain what we see, in what order and why, to pull back the curtain there as well. There's also an element about television here too. It gives the French National Broadcasting Agency the right to suspend foreign television channels if they are broadcasting information that, to quote this new law, threatens the sincerity and the integrity of the ballot. All of this relates to national elections and the 3-month period before them, right up to the day of the vote. Now, for Emmanuel Macron, the French president himself, who was trolled during his presidential campaign, he says this is the condition of a free and fair internet as seen by the founding fathers. But that is not how it was seen by opponents. This was rejected twice by the French Senate in a ping-pong between the French Senate and the Parliament, eventually passed in Parliament. But the critics, they are still very much out there. This is what they've been saying. This was Julien Rochedy. He's a former National Front member. He says, well, that's it. We're back to the 1930s now. The French state has given itself a monopoly on truth. And when it comes to the foreign media, well, Russia Today says it is them and Sputnik, two Russian state-backed channels that are the targets of this new law, saying it's in an article saying, is France sliding into democracy? Welcome to democracy, question mark, is that article. So Tessa, controversial inside of France, controversial outside of France. The test for this new law will be with the European elections coming up, how it works, not inside a parliament chamber, but out here in the real world and in the timelines of you and I.
Thank you for that, Alex and the Cube team. All right. Joining us for this discussion is the Telegraph's Brussels correspondent James Griffiths, and still with us is Finnish MEP with the National Coalition Party Sirpa Pietikäinen and Laura Shields, a PR and messaging expert, director of Red Thread Communications. James, since you're new on this panel, I'll start with you. Is this going the right direction?
You know, I'm not sure. I think really, rather than coming down on the regulation side of things, I mean, maybe we just need to step back and all realize that you can't really trust anything you read on the internet. But basically, if you're getting your news from Facebook, if you're getting it from Twitter, you need to treat it with caution. And if you don't treat it with caution...
So the responsibility is on the individual and there's nothing that can be done on the other side?
Well, no, there can be stuff, but I'd always prefer the responsibility to be on the individual than the responsibility to be on, shall we say, Emmanuel Macron or French MPs. All
right. You were talking earlier in our previous subject about governments having to step in. Is this a case of governments having to step in?
Yes, I think we need to act civil to form a civilization. And internet isn't in another space or galaxy. So I think the format is, can you trust anything I read on a newspaper?
Yes.
Yes. Because there's a law in place, there's the editorial responsibility, and basically it is the same question. You put the editorial responsibility on platforms. You have to check that you are not part of the hate speech or that is not outrageously lie what you are spreading around. And that is not the nitty-gritty, and already the algorithms are doing a lot of work so they can manage with this one very well too.
But newspapers are businesses. I mean, that's true, but there is at least a sort of an ideal where some people working in newspapers would like to feel that they have a duty to inform. I don't think that Facebook or Twitter feels that duty at all.
But we feel that they have a duty to act accordingly.
Laura, is this a slippery slope when it comes to who is controlling and who is deciding? These are human beings still who are calling the shots. Making those decisions.
I have pretty strong views on this because I do think that information or quality information has to be the lifeblood of liberal democracy, and I think that everything that you read about disinformation and fake news suggests that what it's designed to do is to exacerbate existing divisions in countries. So I do think some kind of firm action needs to be taken. What bothers me is that I don't think it should be left in the hands of politicians. I think it needs to be a much wider group. The criteria for what counts as fake facts, and I think this is key, it's fake facts, not fake opinions, needs to be extremely transparent.
It's not something we agree or disagree with.
And also,
exactly.
What also bothers me actually is that given the speed with which this stuff can circulate, getting it banned may not actually achieve anything, because by the time it's got to the point where it's circulating it around, it'll have done enough damage.
Right.
So whilst I think that some action does need to be taken, I think you've got to try lots of different things, because at the moment nobody really knows how to fight this.
And if the target, as Alex was saying, that some foreign channels say that they are actually the target, if that is indeed the target, does this law is it even effective?
I'm not going to comment on this because I'm not familiar in details about the law, but about the principle, sort of the equation with this kind of editorial responsibility should be laid down there and acted accordingly. And then it is, of course, interpretation case by case, like it is with the normal old-fashioned media, what is to be considered fact or not. And this is not the nitty-gritty issues. It is about these gross attempts to impact our policy and political
obviously,
life.
fact is fact. What's black is black, black and white. But when there are things that can be open to interpretation, where do you draw the line on that? When what one may call fake news is something they don't agree with.
Well, it's a difficult line to draw. I mean, it's a very difficult line to draw.
How do you do it in newspaper?
You make an informed decision after speaking to a number of sources.
Right, but this is what's an interesting point, is that all the neuroscience shows that actually we don't share what is true, we share what is compelling, and that is the big challenge of the social networks. So in this sense, I don't think most people can be trusted. I mean, there's an example from India where there was a WhatsApp group in various rural communities, and there was
led to killings.
Yes, led to killings,
right?
Exactly, because it was fake news about suspected paedophiles. So this is, taking it with a pinch of salt, yes, but the point is this comes back to trust, and it also comes back to what we instinctively go with, and I think we do need to manage that.
As this
But it's a great challenge.
Yeah, as it rolls out, I think we will see how it impacts the upcoming elections, because that is the reason why I think generally it was put into place in the first place.